It's interesting, when you travel and like why, आप सुबह का ट्रेन में ट्रैवल करोगे 7 out of 10 guys आपके देखोगे उनके मोबाइल पे स्टॉक मार्केट का ऐप ओपन होता है, या तो कोई टेक्निकल चार्ट देख रहा है वो कर रहा है, बट इफ यू टू आस्क देम व्हाट डज इट मीन.
UPI played a significant role in digital adoption for Indians, and it owns 91% of transactions. So how does UPI success actually translate into net profit for this fund's portfolio?
The whole world is saying that India should be among the best performing economy going forward, in the next at least foreseeable future. Then banking and financial services has to do well for India to do well.
Do you think this frictionless lending debt trap, क्या 3 important data points रहेंगे to check before investing in any sector?
There are 3 elements, Kanishka, which are most important. People think stocks which are available for cheap are always good.
Yes.
कई बार cheap valuation एक trap होता है, right?
So for a retail investor who sees these superior returns, एक temptation होता है ना to go all in. So should this be a satellite allocation, or can this sector be allowed a larger slice of an investor's portfolio? Mr. Chirag, we have 100 crore internet users right now, but only 5.8 crore mutual fund investors. Mm-hmm. My question is, what do you think could be the reason behind this massive gap? And as a head of digital, how do you plan to bridge this?
So, Kanishka, when you look at this number, obviously there's a huge gap. But if you see, while the digital revolution in India started, it's around 14-15, the actual takeoff happened only post-COVID. So after 2020, 2021. So the numbers of the mutual fund folio numbers also that you see has more than doubled since then. So it's catching up, though it's a huge gap and a lot of catch up is required. But money being a sensitive matter, people are too emotional about money, using the digital way of transacting. I think people still get used to it. And people are used to it with banking now. I think with investments, be it mutual funds or any other investment products, I think it is catching up, and soon probably you see a higher number of folios coming there through.
मेरा ना आपसे एक और question है. Now, another data which shows a massive shift. Household borrowing is now rising, faster than deposits. In fact, the average entry age for borrowers right now is, just 20-year-old. So, do you think this frictionless lending is a sign of vibrant or consuming economy, or are we setting a debt trap?
So I think it is a case of a prospering middle class in India. अगर आप loans का proportion भी देखिए between secured and unsecured, if you see for banks, 75% of the lending book is secured, only 25% is unsecured. For NBFC, the ratio is 70-30. तो ये कहना कि एक debt trap set हो रहा है, it might not be the right thing. I think RBI has done a great job in ensuring the guidelines are in place, the credit processes are in place, risk monitoring अच्छे से हो रहा है. It also reflects in the number of NPAs, right? अगर आप NPA की बात करें तो जो पीक में जब 2001-2002 की बात करें तो 11% के ग्रॉस NPA हुआ करता था, आज की तारीख में 2% के आसपास है. नेट NPA तो 1% से भी कम है. So एक होता है कि एक्चुअल साइज बढ़ना लेंडिंग का, बट दैट इज अ मैटर ऑफ how our middle class has also been prospering over the last few years. अगर ये जो बबल है, ये जो lending का बबल है, अगर ये बड़े बड़े corporates ही है जो ज्यादा से ज्यादा पैसा लेके जा रहे हैं, then you can see as a debt trap, ताकि आपका concentration risk ज्यादा है, per ticket lending ticket ज्यादा हो जाती है. But that is not the case with India right now. The middle class is prospering. We are seeing the entrepreneurial culture in India is also going up significantly. That is also leading to this. And most of it is lifestyle, right? And like I said, since 75% is secured, then I don't think so it is a trap, but it's more a case of the booming middle class in India.
Okay. Now, there is also a growing narrative, which is like, agar aapke paas Nifty 50, you own Nifty 50, right? You already own enough banking. So if an investor is looking at 2026, why should they choose, this focused thematic fund over a standard Nifty index fund?
To put it in context, it slightly might be relatable to Indians who are, food lovers. आप किसी रेस्टोरेंट में जाते हो थाली खाने के लिए, आपको हर चीज़ें मिल जाती है, आपको रोटी भी मिलेगी, सब्जी भी मिलेगी, चावल भी मिलेगी, रायता भी मिलेगी, मिठाई भी मिलेगी. बट आपको मिठाई खाने का मन होगा तो आप क्या करेंगे? आप मिठाई के शॉप में ही जाएंगे. सेम थिंग इज हियर, राइट? आई मीन अगर आप एक डाइवर्सिफाइड इंडेक्स, डाइवर्सिफाइड में जाओगे, आपको हर मिलेगी तरह के एक्सपोजर मिलेगी. यू गेट एक्सपोजर टू बैंकिंग, IT, फार्मा, एनर्जी, हर तरह की मिलेगी. बट if banking financial services sector is such a sector where the growth of the economy is linked to that particular sector. See, any economy, be it India or India economy, cannot grow if the banking and financial services sector cannot grow.
Hmm.
So, if you want to play that growth story or the India growth story, with the whole world is saying that India should be among the best performing economy going forward, in the next at least foreseeable future, then banking and financial services has to do well for India to do well. तो
Hmm.
आपको अगर थाली खानी है तो आप डाइवर्सिफाइड चले जाइए, आपको मिठाई खाने का मन है तो आप बैंकिंग फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज इंडेक्स के आप एक्सपोजर ले सकते हैं.
Okay, okay. Now, since the financial services index, it has outperformed the Nifty 50. अगर आप past 3 years में देखोगे, 5 years में देखोगे या 10 year period में भी देखोगे, and काफी significant margin का outperform. So, for a retail investor who sees these superior returns, एक temptation होता है ना to go all in. So, should this be a satellite allocation, or can this sector be, allowed a larger slice of an investor's portfolio?
So I would say it can be part of the core portfolio because in India, actually, I can just give you some statistics. Okay, अगर अभी पूरा sector देखते हैं BFSI, there are 261 companies which are listed which are tagged as BFSI. So एक तो
Yeah.
यूनिवर्स छोटा नहीं है. टिपिकली हर सेक्टर में क्या होता है, करीबन 50 60 70 कंपनीज होती है. सो
Hmm.
कॉन्सेंट्रेशन रिस्क ज्यादा होता है, आपके पास चॉइसेस ज्यादा नहीं होते. बट व्हेन यू लुक एट BFSI, there are 261 companies were there in listed space, right? और
Hmm.
BFSI typically हम लोग तीन वर्टिकल्स में डिवाइड करते हैं. एक होते हैं लेंडिंग, विच इंक्लूड्स
Hmm.
बैंक्स एंड एनबीएफसीज जो लेंडिंग और डिपॉजिट के बिजनेस में है. दूसरे नॉन लेंडिंग लाइक रेटिंग एजेंसीज हो गई, इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज हो गई, फिनटेक्स हो गए.
Hmm.
और थर्ड पार्ट है कैपिटल मार्केट्स, एएमसीज, स्टॉक एक्सचेंजेस, ब्रोकर्स, आरटीएस हो गए. तो अब
Hmm.
ये तीनों वर्टिकल अगर आप देखिए फिर इंडिया के पर्सपेक्टिव से देख, इतने खुद ही इतने डाइवर्सिफाइड है और तीनों में काफी सारे लिस्टेड सिक्योरिटीज में ऑप्शंस अवेलेबल है. So instead of making it like any other sectoral fund, which is like a typical part of a satellite allocation, this
Hmm.
can actually become a part of a core allocation. Though I would say it should not be a significant part of a core allocation, but can
Hmm.
definitely be part of the core allocation.
Okay, okay. Now, since we are talking about the sector, UPI has, played a significant role in, especially digital adoption for Indians. And it owns 91% of, transactions. Yet it remains a cost center for, many. So how does UPI success actually translate into, net profit for this fund's portfolio? And, are we investing in transaction volume, or the alpha is hidden in the data these users are generating?
So I think it's a combination of both, Karisha. UPI, अगर आप देखें, what UPI has basically done, it has increased the reach of the financial transaction. आज गांव में बैठ के भी लोग ट्रांजेक्ट कर सकते हैं, पैसे ट्रांसफर कर सकते हैं. I think the government is now even working to do cross-border transactions through UPI, doing it in
Hmm.
internet currencies as well. So UPI 91% इसलिए भी हुआ है ताकि not just it has increased the depth, कि आप 10 रुपए की सब्जी भी खरीदने जाओ तो भी पे कर सकते हो. But it's also
Hmm.
increased the breadth. अगर आप T30, B30 cities में जाते हो, Tier 3, Tier 4 cities, it's a very actively used mode of payment.
Hmm.
एंड यूपीआई टिपिकली जनरली हम बात करते हैं, लोग सोचते हैं यूपीआई मतलब ऑटो का भाड़ा देना, सब्जी खरीदना. इट्स मच बियॉन्ड दैट नाउ. आज की अगर हम
Yes.
बात करें, आप एसआईपीस की अगर बात करें म्यूचुअल फंड में, मोर
Hmm.
देन 70% ऑफ द इंक्रीमेंटल एसआईपीस आर हैपनिंग टू यूपीआई ऑटो पे.
Hmm.
अगर आप ट्रेडिशनल मेथड देखें नेट बैंकिंग से, तो क्या होता है, आप एसआईपी जब शुरू करते हो, रजिस्टर करते हो, फिर आपको नेट बैंकिंग में जाना होता है, एज अ बिलर आपको ऐड करना होता है, उसके बाद आपकी एसआईपी एक्टिव होती है. कई
Yes.
लोग वो वाला लेग भूल जाते हैं. लोगों को लगता था मैंने एएमसी पे गया, वेबसाइट पे गया, एसआईपी कर ली, मेरी एसआईपी बन गई. दे फॉरगेट
Hmm.
टू ऐड द बिलर. तो काफी सारे एसआईपी इसलिए भी रिजेक्ट होते थे. तो ब्यूटी ऑफ यूपीआई ऑटो पे इज, एक बार आपने यूपीआई ऑटो पे के थ्रू पेमेंट कर दिया, वो ऑटोमेटिकली रजिस्टर हो जाती है आपकी एसआईपी एज अ मैंडेट. So that
Hmm.
is the incrementally more and more people are now using UPI even for their investment needs.
Hmm.
And we are seeing it SIP in front of us happening in our industry. More than 70% registrations is happening to
Yes.
UPI auto pay. So it's not so much about the data, but just
Hmm.
the flexibility that it gives. आप कभी भी ट्रांजैक्ट करते हो, आप SIP में modifications कर सकते हो, आप payment alert set कर सकते हो. It has given so much of flexibility, which is leading to this kind of volumes now.
Okay. Okay. Assuming I'm a retail investor with 3 to 5 year uh, horizon, तो मेरे लिए क्या 3 important data points रहेंगे to to check before investing in any sector? Like How to know if I'm, investing in the right sector?
There are three elements, Kanishka, which are most important. One, what is the growth potential of the company, right?
Hmm.
And growth के भी three elements. Growth वो जिस इंडस्ट्री या सेक्टर में ऑपरेट करे उसका कितना है, विद इन
Hmm.
इंडस्ट्री वो कंपनी का कैसा है,
Hmm.
पोटेंशियल. एंड फाइनली, डज द कंपनी हैव अ गुड मैनेजमेंट इन प्लेस टू टेक एडवांटेज ऑफ द ग्रोथ पोटेंशियल. ओके,
Hmm.
कई बार आई मीन आई जनरली गिव दिस एग्जांपल कि जब घोड़े की रेस होती है, तो जितना इंपॉर्टेंट घोड़ा होता है उतना इंपॉर्टेंट जॉकी होता है टू विन द रेस. तो कई बार
Hmm.
ऐसा होता है, बिजनेस मॉडल अच्छा होता है, बट अगर मैनेजमेंट अच्छा नहीं होता तो भी कंपनी कई बार फेल कर जाती है. So if you
Hmm.
have a good business and a good management, it typically is a good recipe for the business to do well going forward. So first is the growth potential. Secondly is how the risks are addressed by these companies. कई
Hmm.
बार जब ग्रोथ ज्यादा आ जाती है तो कंपनीज रिस्क को इग्नोर कर देती है, एंड दे जस्ट टेक ऑन टू मेनी रिस्क. And whenever there is a slight slowdown in the economy or in the sector, it gets exposed, and then company witness a sharp correction, and then they find it difficult to recover from there. So how
Hmm.
the risk management practices are in place. And third and final, which we think is important, to look at the valuations as well.
Hmm.
कई बार valuations बहुत ही expensive होते हैं, which already factors in say 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of earnings. Then obviously
Hmm.
it is a strict no. But the other end is also quite important to know, Kanisha. जहाँ पे लोग कई बार गलती कर जाते हैं, people think stocks which are available for cheap are always good. कई बार
Yes.
cheap valuation एक trap होता है, right? एमनी कंपनी चीप की होती है कई बार, अगर आपके पास कोई ग्रोथ प्रोस्पेक्ट ही नहीं है, अगर कंपनी का अच्छी मैनेजमेंट नहीं है, अच्छा बिजनेस मॉडल नहीं है, तो उसको कोई कंपनी या कोई इन्वेस्टर अच्छी वैल्यूएशन क्यों देगा? तो
Hmm.
उसकी चीप वैल्यूएशन रहेगी. सो चीप वैल्यूएशन भी कई बार ट्रैप बन जाता है, जो अक्सर हम कई बार पढ़ते हैं, सुनते हैं, लोग बोलते हैं, आप फिल्टर डाल दीजिए लोएस्ट पी पे, जो सबसे अच्छा सस्ता पी दिखेगा, पिक अप दो स्टॉक्स. But I think
Yeah.
that's not the right way to do it, because sometimes cheap valuation is a trap. So it has to be looked along with the growth potential. So growth potential, along with how the risk is managed in the business and the valuation, these are three things I would suggest that people should look for before making an investment decision.
Okay. And let's say we are talking about 2026. तो एक ऐसा digital trend investors should embrace and should avoid.
Interesting. To embrace is, I think people should use digital platforms and tools to do both learn and earn.
Hmm.
आजकल हम लोग increasingly trend देखे जा रहे हैं, either people are using only to learn or only to earn.
Yes.
You get to learn a lot, but people are not using those learnings to probably find ways to earn. अब कई लोग सिर्फ अर्न कर रहे हैं without making use of it to learn, and they're just taking too much of risk. It's interesting, when you travel, and I mean, coming in Mumbai, आप सुबह अगर ट्रेन में ट्रैवल करोगे, 7 out of 10 गाइस आपके देखोगे उनके मोबाइल पे स्टॉक मार्केट का ऐप ओपन होता है, या तो कोई टेक्निकल चार्ट देख रहा है, वो कर रहा है. बट इफ यू टू आस्क देम व्हाट डज इट मीन, शायद ही कोई जवाब दे पाएगा इसका 100% करीब व्हाट डज इट मीन. So I think digital is such a fantastic tool. Okay, you can use it to learn and earn. Just don't learn without taking the benefit of earning, or just don't take too much of risk in just earning and forget to learn through this thing. So that is one thing I think that people should embrace, to use digital platforms to both learn as well as earn. One thing that people should avoid is obviously just taking unnecessary risk.
Hmm.
Many people, they just expose themselves to too many things. We've seen so many frauds happening, and we've seen so many frauds happening to learned people. ऐसा नहीं है
Yes.
कि people who are not aware, they're not literate, they are the ones getting attacked. If you see incremental, look at the cases that come across. These are people who are educated, people in fact who are even well aware within the digital ecosystem. Even they get trapped. So be careful. While it gives you a lot of flexibility, I know एक button press करके आप खरीद सकते हो, बेच सकते हो, सब कर सकते हो, but there's also risk of losing of your personal information, your personal identity, and it will lead to multiple frauds where you can lose a lot of money. So don't overdo it. Do it in a controlled manner, and ensure that all your protections, your password protections, etc., everything is in place to ensure that your data is not exposed.
Okay. That is very, insightful. But it was for 2026, right? Now, for a 10-year structural bet on digital adoption, would you pick lending or non-lending, and why?
So it's not a question of either or, it's a question and. I think
Okay.
because अगर आप banks भी देखोगे, अगर they are also evolving their models. If you look at
Hmm.
any banks, whether it's private sector banks or PSU banks, You look at incremental, they're spending more and more on digital adoption. They're spending so much on the technology, because everyone has realized that brick and mortar model is not the way forward, right? To increase
Hmm.
the reach, you need to have the digital way. So I think banks are also doing that. Fintech stock, FYERS is also one of the leading fintech. So you know how digital adoption is helping in growing the client base, helping them meet their financial needs. So I think
Hmm.
it's a question of banks as well, lending as well as non-lending source rather than banks or these things.
Hmm.
So I think it's an interest. That's why I think we believe we are at a very interesting point in this entire sector, because I think the entire sector is evolving and with so much of potential. If you go back to the first point we discussed, just 5.8 crores out of 100 crores in internet users, that itself shows the potential, right? I mean,
Yes.
there's 75 crores as smartphone users, just to give an
Hmm.
example, Kanishka. And even if half of it open one SIP through their mobile, you're talking about another 37 crore SIPs or 37
Yes.
crore folios, which is almost six times your current size. So that's
Hmm.
the size, growth potential you're talking about. You're not talking about 10%, 12%, 15%. We're talking multiples now. Four
Hmm.
times, five times. Same is the case with, if you look at the sum assured to GDP ratio, we are very low compared to the global average. If you look at the private sector credit to GDP ratio, again, very low compared to the global average. So the growth potential is in multiples and not just in terms of percentages now for this sector.
Mr. Chirag, you sit at the heart of a digital business. I have a question that, how much of your own personal portfolio is automated versus manually managed?
Okay. Automated, if you call SIP as automated,
Yes.
then I would say roughly 60 to 70% of my portfolio is automated.
Hmm.
Rest, I still try to keep a close control over how the asset allocation is working. Am I getting too exposed to equity, little exposed to equity, too exposed to one style or sector or market cap? So to that extent, yes, I try to keep a control, because it also builds in a habit to do a regular review of your portfolio. If I do complete automation,
Hmm.
what happens is you take it for granted, you believe everything is working fine, you stop evaluating and reviewing your portfolio. But at the end of every 3 months, I don't sit every month, but say maybe at the end of every 3 months, 6 months, I sit and look at the portfolio myself. It's when at
Hmm.
least gives me an opportunity to review, which is why thoda sa portion I keep it for a manual intervention and not let it be 100% automated.
Okay. So you mentioned that, you evaluate once in every 6 months, but how often do you, check your portfolio? Especially when, the markets are not in the right direction.
Not, I think, probably maybe once in say 4 to 6 weeks, I check my portfolio.
Wow.
So as
Was it
long
was
as
it like this before also, or like over the period, just reduce the frequency?
so I think that's been the case right from the beginning. So what I
Hmm.
do, I spend more time in researching the right funds or the right stocks to invest. And once I invest, once I'm convinced that the companies will do well going forward, or the fund sector style is good enough, I think markets up and down. See, markets on the ups and downs. So ani, it's not markets are not going to go one way up or not going to go one day down continuously. So if
Hmm.
you're convinced about and done enough research in terms of where you're investing, I think your need to check your portfolio regularly goes down.
Okay. Okay. With that, let's switch to our rapid fire round. I will ask a couple of questions, and I want you to answer whatever comes to your mind first.
Okay, let's go for it.
Okay. I'll start with the first question: private banks or PSU banks?
Going forward, my personal choice, PSU banks,
Okay. Insurance penetration or mutual fund expansion?
MF expansion,
Okay. Disrupting the banks or partnering with them?
partnering with them.
Okay. A physical branch visit for a large loan or a 2-minute digital approval?
Large loan, physical visit.
Okay. And why so? I'm curious.
So, like I said, and money is very sensitive and important. And for a large loan, typically, I
Hmm.
mean, it's important to get your documentation right. You go through your agreements properly. You ensure all your papers are in place. If it's a small phone, अगर मुझे iPhone खरीदना है loan पे, I'll probably do it at a click of a mobile phone. I'll not even venture into a bank.
Hmm.
Even if for probably an auto loan, I probably do it on the click of a button. But if it
Hmm.
was a large loan, like a housing loan and all, where you just need to verify all the documents and etc., I'll probably still visit a branch, to get it done and not do it digitally. Maybe a bit old school, but I think for a large ticket, I still prefer a physical visit.
Okay, my last question. Just in one sentence, why should an investor pick this focused BFSI fund over the safety of, a simple Nifty 50 index fund?
So, if anyone and everyone who is convinced that India is going to be among the fastest growing economy going forward, India cannot do that without the support and growth of BFSI sector. If you look historically, be it in the case of India, be it any other global economies, whenever they have gone through the phase of growth, it is because of the health, strength, and the growth of the BFSI sector. So if anyone listening to this is convinced about the growth of India as an economy, should participate in this fund and try to take benefit of this growth opportunity that India as an economy offers.
Okay, well, that makes sense. I'm sure our audience would really appreciate this clarity and insights, Mr. Chirag. Thank you for taking time out and talking to Fires.
My pleasure, Kanishka. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risk. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.